This Daf Yomi Yerushalmi Pesachim. The article odds by edition were on Daf Chav Tes Amal at the second line from the top. Yoshi himself shall go b'Shabbos, and in the Vilna that is on Daf Chav Hey Amid Beis, and it is 3, 6, 7 lines to the bottom. Okay, so about Minhagim still. Yoshi himself shall Akum b'Shabbos. You're allowed to sit on the bench of a non-Jew on Shabbos. It says Korbanei Reveim Asaf Solim Shemorchem Aleim. These are benches upon which they make sales. According to the letter of the law, you're allowed to sit on them. But there are people who have conduct themselves not to do so, so people should not be suspicious that they're engaged in some sort of commercial activity on Shabbos. So the Gemara says, Nogin Yoshua and Sapso shall Yakum Shabbos allowed to sit on the bench of a non-Jew on Shabbos. Ma'aser Gamliel shall Sapso shall Akum b'Shabbos b'Akum. Leo sat on the bench of a non-Jew on Shabbos in Akko. They said, Ram Gamliel, Lo Yunogin Kain, Leo Shosh, and Sapso shall Akum b'Shabbos. It's not our custom here to sit on the Sapso of a non-Jew on Shabbos. V'lo Ratzel Lomar Lohem Mutar Lasos Kain. Not want to permit it for them. Obviously, he felt it was a good minute on their part. He stood up and he went away. They went, there's gears here, Shenichnas, Shenichnasu, maybe it should be Lirchotz Neven. The idea is the same, regardless whether the Nichnas is there or not. They went down to together to bathe in a bathhouse in Kabul on Shabbos. He said, two brothers don't go to the bathhouse together in this place in Kabul. It says Mishum Pritusa. And then there's some chashash of homosexuality. Nami the goes to or some other type of hura can come about. So in any event, so again, there's there's no issues of this sort. So then they wanted to say that it's okay, even though it is okay. And they went in one after another. They did not bathe together. Another case. Shiyatsu, these two brothers, Yehuda and Hillel, the sons of Gamliel, Shiyatsu Talta Tayel, Bekarkudios Shozar Belele Shabbos Bebiru. They went out with Karkudios, which Korban says means sandolim rechavim, broad sandals. We're not concerned, and maybe they're going to take them off and carry them 4 Amos which was Rabbim. They said, them in this place in Biru, we don't do that here. They didn't want to permit it to them. Rather, they just took them up and sent them home in the hands of their presumably non-Jewish servants. Okay, so our mission, of course, it talked about minhagim, which we said in the Smach in the Torah itself, said that not to do Melach and Erev Pesach. There we brought down psukim which allude to this, at least as remez. But he says also of Pesach, not just Pesach, where there's a Smach midaraisa, but even a generic minhag, a minhag ba'alma, which was accepted by people, and it seems to be a legitimate minhag. We're not matter it. For example, they accept upon themselves the people who spread the nets, the fishermen in Tveria, also the Grusei Tziporin, the people who ground the legumes in Tzipori, and the Shushe Akko, the people who pounded the cereal in Akko. All these shalosos malacha b'chol shamoy. So they all say upon themselves not to do their work on Chol Hamoed because of Kavod Yantiv, and even though it's mutter according to the letter of the law, but they were makav not to do it, and we didn't discourage this minute. So it says Gemara, wait a minute. Fine, the people who are grinding the legumes or pounding the cereal, fine. You don't need to do a chol moed. But chemet fair, the fishermen in fair, enamatim b'simchas haregel, is it not? Are they not going to diminish simchas yontif, right? Because the way the Korban explains it, so the grain or legumes or whatever you're going to pound or grind, that you can do before yontif, and it won't get ruined, right? But the fish, you can't fish before yontif. And skip chol moed, the yontif achon, you're not going to have fish cover the yontif. So aren't they diminishing simchas yontif? So the Gemara says you're right. They refrained from fishing altogether. They didn't do it the way they normally do it on a weekday, which is use the nets and fish in large quantities. Tzad b'chika, they would use hooks, or tzad mechmoris, which is some sort of small type of trap. I feel kainamati b'simchas haregel. It's still okay, but aren't they diminishing simchas haregel because they can't get? The Korban says they can't get many fish and can't get big fish that way. So Rabbi Ami, in fact, Mekulon. He was Mekel, which means he cursed them. Because the Himamatin, but Simchas HaRegel. Because the meaning Simchas HaRegel, by not fishing in the normal way. Okay, it's not like when I ask a generic question about this, the status of Minhagim. Call them Makom. They had a minhag in a certain place. Now they moved somewhere else. And Ubik Shalach away and want to establish new minhag, and minhag on the minhag of their forefathers. The prior minhag, which they conduct themselves stringently where they came from. Let's apply this that which Rabbi Ba said. The Bnei Maisha, the people of Maisha accept upon themselves not to go down to the sea. So Bnei Moshe says 3 days before Shabbos. Korban says if it seems Korban they will makabel themselves never to become sailors, lest after they come to makabel Shabbos. Okay, as we showed Rabbi, so they came and asked Rabbi whether they can renege on this. They said, they will not go down to the Mediterranean either 3 days before Shabbos or at all. What's our status? Since your forefathers conduct themselves in a way that's prohibited, so don't deviate from the custom of your forefathers of blessed memory. So ask Gemara, come on. Can't the person neg on his nether? In other words, even they took a nether, right, which is worse than a meg, right? Can't they be shoyal on nether? And here too, let them since their forefathers who accepted the nether no longer here, let them be able to nullify the nether. Talmud says, well, no, there it's different. And then Mishnodar, in the Vilna says Mishnodar, one word, but it's like he who took the nether, Nisha. He can be sure he's sure on the nether. So therefore, that it works. But here there was the acceptance by the forefathers that makes it worse. Can't be sure on the nether which your forefathers took upon themselves. You can't be sure on the nether which your forefathers take upon themselves. So it says, well, wait a minute, Kolshkin you mutaros. Right? They should certainly be mutar. As Korban says, they didn't make nether, but the Chamir on nether, certainly what that which a person thinks of himself should be worse than that which other people accepted, and now I'm following their precedent. So the Gemara, Korban explains, "Shiny illumination no go say right also them, right? Not because the forefathers were accustomed to do it, did he ask them, ask them Rebbe, every time asked them, but rather he asked them for another reason. Rebbe Tamid Rabbi Yehuda Hava. Rebbe was a student of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda Amar Osafarish B'Yom Gadol. You're not allowed to forsake to go down to the Yom Gadol. So it's interesting that it's brought down here. Why now have to go down to Yom Gadol? And it's like more like Korban Eidah that that it was ever no day of the week. So Rebbe answered them there's I don't know, the Yerushalmi Pesachim brings it down. He said he asked them because of Rabbi Yehuda's shita that he now has to leave Eretz Yisrael and go to Chutz La'aretz. Um, the Chasam Sofer says, "Rabbi Yehuda Amar Osef Hashem Magoda Manichu Kubazeh." There's Rabbi Yehuda's comment. Which Rabbi Yehuda do we have in mind? So of course, going to Yerushalmi Pesachim means who says also leave both for Eretz Yisrael and it's also leave Eretz Yisrael. Magam Acher Kosavi Embosh Iyam Samach LaShabbos of Var Mitzvah Kamur Perkam LaShabbos. But lo yitzrichim l'tzayim zonas u'parnasa elo laharviach. So he says that this is there's a lucky now allowed to go an Erev Shabbos or so adjacent to Shabbos unless you need to make a living, and they didn't need to make a living. It was only to make extra money, so to speak. So please, Babli, we do Rabbanan Reishberg Elam Galkin in Mikra Dvar Mitzvah or no. Whether this is called bar mitzvah. I am sham daf yudal, so therefore over here, this is so whether you're doing something leharviach, is that permitted or not? And right, is one who answers. And then he says, different shots. He says it's from Zonos. That Zonos is not that mitzvah according to Rabbi Yehuda. And then I don't know, there must be other pshatim here. Yeah, the article brings down from the Tal Torah, Masu Yerushalayim, and Reb Chaim Kanievsky, that's Bishum Sakana. That's right. And then he says it's also, it's like a Beishamai, that's also after Wednesday. That's about what the Perushim brings down. Okay. Chazal Sofer also points out, however, that the question is how this resolves Moore's original question, because Moore's original question was that what happens if you move from place to place, and the Bnei Meshul did not seem to move from place to place over here. They seem to be in the same place. So Karmena wants to say that they did change their places, but that's Chosim in the Sefer. The Chazal Sofer says, want to say from here that it's a din in the Gavra, not a din in the Mokim, because just like from generation to generation, you don't change, even though previous generation is no longer here. So to go from place to place, you don't change. But I think that's only if they move en masse together. They remain in the same group, which came from the original location. If they don't move on, if they move as individuals, many individuals come to a new location, then they can change minhagim. It's a very famous Nachal Eshko who says that in Stockholm, Sweden, they used to only fast Shiva Sabbath to 9 p.m. even though it was broad daylight. He says because the Shiva Sabbath is a Tainus Yachid, and Tainus Yachid you only go according to the minhag, whatever the minhag is, and all the people came to Stockholm. They established a minhag in Stockholm that they could keep it at 9 o'clock. That would be their minhag for the Tainus Yachid of Shiva Sabbath. So the point is that since many people came from many different places and they come en masse, so therefore perhaps they were able to change the minhag to a new minhag based on a new location. Something along those lines, maybe. Okay, so the Gemara goes on. It says, Hashem Elokish shol Rabbi Yochanan. Hashem Elokish asked Rabbi Yochanan. Vein Asim Shum Balti is going to do. He says that on our Mishnah, it says the Makom Shnagulas Melacha. It says that the people have to be machmir. The ones who came to a place where they didn't do Melacha to a place where they do Melacha, they have to be machmir, refrain from doing Melacha. So what about Balti is going to do? Right? That's so good as a good as they're having to they're conducting themselves in different ways. So that's one way of learning the question. But the way the article learns the question, the way I have written down inside more, so I must have got it somewhere, is that he holds that Loti, the question is really even on two Mekoimas, not where people come from the place where they from a place where they have the opposite minhag to this place where they have the different minhag, and they're agudas now because they're in the same city doing it differently. No, but even having one city doing one way, another city doing another way, isn't that agudas? I'm a should have a minhag achid, a unified minhag. We shouldn't have different minhagim. So Amalei said b'shosha elosin kabei shamai elosin b'kabei silo. He said what he's going to do is only when it's a halachic issue, and somebody doing like b'shamai and somebody doing like b'silo. That's what he's going to do. But if it's a thing which is just a minhag, when people are referring, some people are referring, some people are not referring, there's no lot he's going to do. So a very big chiddush he says here. The lot he's going to do is only by halacha, not by minhag. Okay. So Gemara says, wait a minute. B'sham Beisil, that's not a good example. B'sham Beisil ain't locha Beisil. It's not nice to lot he's going to do. You're not allowed to do like Beishamai because the locha's a Beisil. Okay, so he said, I'm like, B'shasha, Elos Gramei, Elos in Krabi Yosef. Machlus said Meir Yossi, somebody like do Meir like Rabbi Yossi, that's what he's going to do. Says that also is right. Meir Rabbi Yossi ain't halacha Rabbi Yossi. Then we say halacha Rabbi Yossi. So the Gemara says, Amalei Treitan Rayin Rabbi Meir, but Treitan Rayin show Rabbi Yossi. That so two, as Cormier explains, that there are two Tanoim on Rabbi Meir, two Tanoim Rabbi Yossi, and then Machlif. Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Meir, right? So some people Rabbi Meir said this, and Rabbi Yossi said this, and some think the exact opposite. So okay, Pasuk Rabbi Yossi, the question what Rabbi Yossi said, because we have two Tanoim, each have different versions of what Rabbi Meir said and Rabbi Yossi said. So in that case, that's halacha matter. So there, and it's not definitive. What the halacha is there. It's not defined what halacha is because true halacha Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yossi said there. It's what he's going to do. Okay, so he asked him, okay, what about the following case? I'm like, Rosh Hashanah b'Yom Kippurim b'Yehuda. The case of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur in the Rosh Hashanah, obviously, right? The case of Yom Kippur of Yovel. In Yehuda, Nogu Rabbi Akiva. Although Yovel didn't apply at the time of the Gemara, I guess Yovel just slept along here. In Yehuda, they're Noeg like Rabbi Akiva, and they would be Tokeh b'Malchus. And Megolil, Nogu Rabbi Nuri, and they were not Tokeh b'Malchus. Why is that Loti's go to do? So here we see clearly that going back to the beginning, that the question is obviously even two separate places, not just in one place, but two separate places. You have Loti's go to do. So that's why I had written down back in my Gemara back then. So the Karmei says next words to Amarle. I wonder if the article changes inside. Yes, he does. He changed the text of the Odor itself. Shani here, he explains, Shani also came, Im Asa B'Diabek, Cham Shneim, B'Kol Makom Yatza. Lama Sekh Shtei Teros, because you still only need 30 kolos altogether, no matter where they are. So therefore, that's why Shani Yushim Arav Asa B'Yehuda, Kikol B'Yehuda Yatza, so therefore it's not a problem. Those Dasu Agudos Agudos. So he brings a fascinating question. Hari Purim, Hari Elu Karim B'Yudav, Elu Karim B'Tezvav. Right, it's a problem what he's going to do. Amarle, he said, Misha Sider es HaMishnah, he who arranged the Mishnah, in other words, presumably Anshe Knesset Gdola, who arranged this halacha, Samcha Lemikra, they learned it out from they derived this from a pasuk. Mishpacha Medina Ve'ir. It says by the Megillah, you can do different places. Different families, different countries, different districts, different cities. That's not considered to be a problem. And presumably this is the basis for all cases. In other words, as long as there's a group doing it here, a group doing it there, family doing it, family doing it there, that's not going to be Loti's going to do. So the article here has a discussion at the end about, he mentioned that the Bavli holds his Lotasu Agudos is from Yuvomis to Dalit. It's only in the same place, not in two different places. It means that a lot of posts can speak about this. It says even according to Yerushalmi, if the two different Rabbanim in two different places who paskin differently, that's also not considered to be agudos, because we see the famous case of Rabbi Lezer's place. He used to do machshir milah on Shabbos. Rabbi Yossi Agudos' place to do basa open cholav. But I think it could be like, again, according to the Maskonos Sugi, the way the article is learning it is that the Mishnah Siddur and Mishnah is saying that specifically by the Megillah. We're saying mishpachim mishpachim medina medina. But it could be that that once we're saying this, Mishnah Siddur and Mishnah means that the only time loyalties go to applies is in the same city, and the Mishnah means the only issue is when you're in the same city and you must deviate from the minhag hamakam. But when Yerushalmi holds a maskana, if it's two different places, two different locations, two different families, which I guess means substantial the difference between the families, maybe geographic difference or some other difference. So then loyalties go to not be relevant. And if that's the case, then this explains what it says at the end of our Mishnah, which we're about to discuss. Right? Aishana in the same place. Mishnah Siddur, that Mishnah is saying that in the same place, Aishana but if it's to two different places, Mishpacha, ear over ear, Mishpacha, ear over ear, it's not a problem. Okay, could be. And the next Yerushalmi is very different than the Bavli. The Yerushalmi says, he says, I shine name now machlikas. Okay, I understand a place where they do malacha, the place where you don't do malacha, don't deviate, don't do malacha. But in makom she'enos, the makom she'enos, you're going for a place where they don't do malacha. The place they do malacha, you shouldn't be mashana. You should do work because make machlikas vivato. These systems doing work. There's surely some people unemployed or either rich there, so why shouldn't you work? And that, in fact, is what the Bavli says. That, we don't have to work because they're always betaling. Yerushalmi goes another way. And evidently, the Yerushalmi keeps to the big that the Rambam seems to be like Yerushalmi. See what Sheriel said, Arm is to be matmiya. As the Yerushalmi keeps to the big the Charedim, that the pshat is that a person who's normally a workaholic, and he's coming to a place where people normally work, and he comes to a place where people don't work. But he comes to a place where people normally work, and everybody knows he's a workaholic. He says the Charedim says, Shlomo brings it down. So he shouldn't be mashan to be mavatel. He even not like the Bavli. Don't say kama batlon b'shuko. He must work because that is going to make machlekes. This person is workaholic and is always doing deals, and at a Pesach in a place where people do deals, he's going to desist from doing so. And the Rambam Perches Lochem says, "I became loiser with name Shubatel ibnei Isser." You shouldn't look at his being mavad. His desist work on account of the Isser. If you can't get away with it looks like everybody that say that I'm a batlon, I never work. You're going to say, oh, you're not working because of the Isser, then you should not be Mashana on account of machlekes, which are the causes. So again, the Machzonas about Yerushalmi is not like the Bavli, and Rambam seems passing at Yerushalmi that there is a concept of doing work in order that people should not think you're making machlekes. Okay, that's it for today. Stop here. And next Mishnah.